When it comes to RPGs, character classes, for the games that have them at least, are essential. They help define a character and offer a framework for a player to begin with. In a good game, the classes stay just a framework and do not get in the way of the creation process or hinder the character in any way. Classes are often heroic, mighty mages, fantastic warriors, the craftiest of thieves, etc. It comes as something of a surprise to see one of the major and most encouraged classes in Star Wars: Edge of the Empire was that of Colonist. This shouldn't have been a major surprise really, as Star Wars needs so many colonists. It isn't bounty hunters or hired guns that make up the vast majority of Outer Rim people. It's colonists. Yet even so, the class itself is often overlooked in many games. Most games have a peasant class or farmer class in fantasy, but no one will ever want to take it. In a fantasy game of knights, rangers and mages, taking a farmer is in almost every way a bad choice. The class is very underpowered when compared to the others and seems like an afterthought, something tacked on as just in case there is that one crazy player who wants an adventuring farmer. Edge of the Empire does the exact opposite. With so many colonists making up the Outer Rim territories, it was important to find ways to make them interesting and not outclassed. Now, it is important to realise that not outclassed doesn't mean in combat. The Colonist class is not a combat class like hired gun. They cannot compete in that way. Instead, the game comes at colonists from a more logical side, and their use in the game is an interesting one. Our original group had 2 different colonists in it. So if the colonist isn't going to be a combat class, what will they be? Well, they made the smart choice of making them useful. Doctors, scholars, politicos. Now, the class isn't a wonder pill. No, not at all. Its makeup isn't easy. Making a hired gun is far easier. Making a performer is far harder. But there is a lot of encouragement in the rules to do just that. But in that mix is a lot of room for a creative player to make something interesting. A doctor can be an excellent companion to the group, both to patch them up and to trade his services to help the group. A businessman understands commerce and can be very streetwise. Scholars are a wealth of information, and performers can be a source of income as well as information, as they can move easily through cantinas. The key to any character, no matter the class, is backstory. Having a solid backstory helps the player understand where they come from, where they are going, and with the obligations and duty, it is of immense help to the GM, who can pull from the backstory to incorporate that into the game. Anytime stuff from a character's background can make its way into the game, then it's going to be a better story. I admit I am not always a fan of quintessential guides on how to be a munchkin, of which there were a great many for all sorts of classes under the old OGL. How to make your stats work best for you kind of books never struck me as doing anything for the story. So as much as I thought Edge of the Empire was the best set of rules I have seen in an RPG for a long time, the idea of a class book filled me with some anxiety. Was this going to be a book about how to turn your performer into the best killing machine he could be? How to make an unbeatable doctor in just 5 easy steps? When the book finally arrived, I was impressed. It's not perfect, but it aims for a balance. One I feel it's not far off. A great deal of story elements mixed with new stat-based stuff. If it has a downfall, it might be not enough of either for the different camps, but I think if people look at what they are trying to do, I think they see it's a fair compromise. So what makes this book cool? Well, for me it's what would used to have been called the fluff. The thing was, in the past, many of these kind of books felt only aimed at how to make the best character from a stat viewpoint. They were the rules lawyers and min-maxers' wet dream. Everything else in the book tended to be fluff, of little use and sometimes blatantly obvious. The Star Wars ones are a bit different. For one, they are the only books of this type that I have read from cover to cover. What is so good about these is it feels like it is adding to the lore, giving good information, but in that information it has ideas for GMs and players. Far Horizons opens with colonizing. Colonists in the Star Wars setting. What is considered a true colonist? The excitement of settling upon a new world. Life as a colonist. Building a life on the frontier. The galaxy is large, with many worlds to be settled. The background section was a fun read, but loaded with ideas on how to improve a character's lore. I really did like this section. It gives a concept like opportunists, and gives ideas on how the class would fit into that concept. Doctors being in high demand on colony worlds could see this as a great opportunity. A person who wants to help small communities can be drawn to colony worlds. Also, the doctors who care only about money, both can be considered opportunists. Backgrounds, in a way, are more like motivations. One of them can easily add a lot of depth to a character. They discuss the opportunist, the grizzled settler, the fugitive, local leader, idealist, and a character can have more than one. These are personality, not stats. A local leader could be a fugitive, or a doctor opportunist can also be an idealist. It adds a new table for colonist obligations, which is nice, as well as 3 new species, the Acrona, the Gran, and the Chevan. I feel most of these are actually better set for NPCs, but if a person is willing to spend the time and be creative, then you could create some very interesting characters. The Specializations offer 3 new ones, the Entrepreneur, Performer, and Marshal, which is a diverse mix. There are new talents, motivations, and abilities, new weapons and equipment, droids, musical instruments, vehicles, and a couple of starships. For the GM, there is a section on how to integrate the class into the game, with ideas on why they are there and what they are doing. It has ideas on what a professional versus adventurer is and how you can bend the ideas for something slightly different. A doctor with only a little formal training, like Zed from Borderlands. Its strength is in how to take what's on the page and make it alive, how to do a campaign, jobs, making different types of colonists, adventure ideas, and more. This book is there to give ideas, but the GM and player are still responsible for making the character something interesting to play. The book is a hardcover, 96 pages, nicely bound, and the pages have a nice feel to them, and the art is absolutely beautiful. None of these books are essential to the RPG, but the added lore, info, art, and general well-rounded quality of the book makes it a nice addition to your Star Wars collection. I totally recommend it. Please tell me that was good.